Hey, everyone. It is Totally Toni, and I'm excited for the reveal of my 2022 executive trend report. So this year, I've taken a lot of time to have one-on-one collaborations with some very cool industry thought leaders. And they shared so much with me that I decided for the first time, I'm actually going to release my trend report to the public and allow you to be inspired by everything that I gathered. So I'm going to tell you my thoughts on 2022 and hope that you'll share with me what yours is as well. So right now, I really feel like it is a time to rise to the challenge. As industry professionals, we have the whole year in front of us. And I want to talk to the leaders in our industry about a goal of contagious enthusiasm this year. My goal is to inspire our future by harnessing the creativity of our teams and bringing innovation to life in our companies and in our culture. I believe that you need an energetic plan with ready to roll implementable solutions for the field team in 2022. So take a minute right now and look at this image. There are actually 9 human faces hidden within that image. Take a minute and see how many you can count that you can find. So now let me unlock the puzzle for you. I highlighted it and put a frame around all 9 of the faces. And the point that I want to make with you today is that it's not what you're looking at that matters. It's what you see. There is an overwhelming amount of information that is being poured out with our weekly reports and data and all the things that are going on. And so what I want to know is, what is your vision? What do you see for 2022? And I am going to show you mine. Inspire growth within your company this year. So I believe inspired leaders are what is going to be the driving force for success at the front line. So I put together a compilation of what I believe are points of inspiration for industry leaders. Right now, never waste a crisis is one of my first points. And that's the fact that there's so much going on in our world. We have come out of 2 years of a global pandemic, but there's tons of innovation and inspiration available. There is a surge in creativity, and I want to show you what is available to give you that inspiration, because I really believe we're going to need it this year. And I don't think you can open up a can of 2021 on the customer experience in 2022. I hope that when you see how you line up the global trends with the industry trends, how there is a very clear message that tells us exactly what we need to be doing this year. As I collaborated with people around the country, they shared with me where they get inspiration. And so in your ebook, I hope you've downloaded that, are links that take you to all sorts of amazing places that you can find daily inspiration at. Also, I love this Wonderman Thomas that they have an Inspire score. So my question is to you, what's your Inspire score, right? You can go look at the top 100 most inspirational brands to get ideas. Also, I was given a link to Achievers, and they have a 2022 engagement report for retention with employees. And I just want to share these 3 key findings. And what I'm hoping today is I'm going to put together a message that brings everything you need for your vision for 2022 forward in your thinking. So 2/3 of employees have one foot out the door. The culture is suffering due to a lack of communication and connection. Make a mental note of that. We need communication and connection, and employees who feel valued and supported will stay on the job. We are suffering with so much time in just keeping our sites staffed. And so as we put all the effort into getting those people there, let's make sure that we connect, that we communicate, and that they feel valued in order to be successful. I follow Adweek webinars. I love them. This is the next webinar that I'm going to be attending, the intersection of creativity and technology. I think it's so important that the human spirit and human creativity is kind of merged in with technology. I also follow Convince and Convert. You'll find tons of episodes with social podcasts, and you'll also find some blogs on digital marketing. I'm a big fan of Brené Brown, and her book, The Atlas of the Heart, has really helped me in writing some very powerful content this year. I follow the podcast. I literally like to just go to brenebrown.com. The podcasts are available right there, and I have never been disappointed. Her Unlocking Us is about learning how to have meaningful relationships in your life, and the Dare to Lead is incredible. So those are two amazing places for you to find inspiration this year. I was also turned on to IDEO, and this is some great opportunities to teach your teams how to listen, and how important is that this year. So all of these are these amazing points of inspiration that you can connect yourself and your teams with. The word unsure, the synonyms of it: distrustful, hesitant, uncertain, unclear, undecided, skeptical, mistrustful. Like, when teams are unsure, it is the foundation of anxiety and distrust. And if your teams have a question mark and they don't know what to do right now, and I'm going to show you some global trends about trust, people are looking for a smaller circle of trust, and they're looking at our teams. And so it is going to be very important this year that you keep the employees you have, and you make sure your plan gives them a sense of assurance that they know what's happening. Very important today. I smile to hide how completely overwhelmed I am. I mean, seriously, there is data put out all the time. We see it on the news almost every night about the anxiety that's going on in our society. I pulled some data from the Pew Research Center, but I wanted to bring a book into play for you in 2022. This is a book that was shared with me some years ago by Pegasus Residential, and it's Never Fry Bacon in the Nude. It's written by Stone Payton, but what it's really about is it's about high velocity leadership and these speed bumps that slow down our ability to create and maintain momentum. I pulled part of the book that describes the 5 speed disciplines, and listen to this. It just makes such good sense. Structure. We just talked about being sure, personal accountability, empathy, education, and direction. So I want to recommend this reading for you this year to destroy the whole sense of overwhelm and get your momentum going in 2022. I also follow Trend Watching and We Are Social. They put out really fantastic reports. I'm going to pull a couple of the data points from these reports and show you how they line up. The first one is from Brave New World in Think Forward 2022. And this talks about there's actually an economy, an economic value to Vibe. And what's interesting is I just had a conversation with somebody in Charlotte, the president of the Apartment Association, and he was talking about evaluating these properties. And this one property had such a higher evaluation. And the investors were like, why is that one doing so well? And is it location, location, location? No, it was staff, staff, staff. We know that our performance is based on the vibe and the tribe and the front line. I'm just going to be real with you. They are tired to their bone marrow. They're not just tired to the bone, they're tired to the bone marrow. I do comedy. If you've been to one of my programs before, I was just in Charlotte. I did a keynote. They laughed at everything. I had people come up to me and just literally say, I had no idea how much I needed this. The vibe in our tribe is critical to our success in 2022. And it is going to be the crux move, getting great moods and feelings. And they're literally saying it has become a coveted skill. And so pay attention to the vibe in your tribe in 2022. Now, I love the butterfly effect. I love to teach the butterfly effect. And it talks about how the wisp of wind from the wing of a butterfly, there's a little butterfly in Brazil, could create a tornado in Kansas, that a small shift in the atmosphere. And I love this because in the description of this, it uses the word atmosphere, the atmosphere of a place as it's felt by others. I mean, the idea that it's not what you do or you say, it's how you make other people feel is going to be very important in 2022. It's about transmitting the feeling. Are y'all feeling my vibe in my tribe right now? I mean, hashtag motivated teams, hashtag caring experiences, hashtag positive upbeat mindset. So now let's take a look at Edelman. So Edelman Trust Barometer, I've been following for about 9 years. I just love it. Last year, they focused on the company and they said the company, the main office, that is what people are trusting. And they're trusting it more than government and media. It was the #1 place of information that was trusted. But this year they're saying it's come down to a closer circle of trust, and that we are trusting our coworkers and our neighbors. Now, follow this. Oh, I want to also mention fake news, all-time high again. There is a trust crisis in our country right now, and people do not trust information. And trust is like the underpinning of relationship. It's so important. And so having people trust us really, really matters. Now, we're going to shift over to trend watching, where trend watching is saying that as demands around transparency heat up, shine a spotlight on your employees. And they're saying that this year, people are flipping their brands inside out to show the heart of their company, which is our frontline team. So Edelman is saying trust has become more local. Trend watching is saying people are looking at the people in your site. So the real crux move this year is going to be how we inspire and motivate the frontline team. But I want today to inspire you at the executive level to drive that innovation, to drive that motivation. So this is from our J. Turner research, local industry research. And how incredible is it that we have 2 global trend reports, and now we look at data inside the industry. What's the most important to you in selecting an apartment to rent? And I believe 2 things are really significant in this data point. One of them is that 55% is pretty high. And the second one is the language, that the staff cares about me, that they felt cared for. It's not like we were efficient and we did everything right and we were thorough and we were good property management. They cared. And that mattered 55% of the time. Also, interactions with the staff continue to show us that people want that great interaction with the staff, and it influences their decision. And again, here's the numbers that reflect that. So I want to take you back about 10 years or so when we came out of recovery from this last recession. When we did, for the very, very first time in the history of the United States, it was multifamily. It was us, sticks in the ground from multifamily, that rebounded the American economy, not single family. The apartment industry contributed over $42.5 billion in economic contributions. And we've been in expansion for over 10 years, continuously adding to the economies of different markets and creating jobs. I think your people need to know this information. If you have put this away and you have forgotten about it, I want to bring it back front of mind, to inspire your teams with who we are to this country and who we are to so many Americans. I also want to connect you with a website called Real Wealth. And there was some great information on housing predictions that I grabbed and screenshot it. And I put 10 of them here. There's a lot more when you follow the link. It also had some peaks in land value, peaks in construction, and peaks in business. And they had the intervals of how it happened. I thought that was some pretty interesting data. Now, I'm not going to read this to you. It's in your trend report, but I just want to point out a couple of things. Unemployment is going to continue to improve. Number 7, they'll continue to invest more to stable cash flow assets. Number 8, the renters are going to continue to rise. And of course, 10, inflation is going to increase. From what I've read, we are at about a 40-year high on inflation right now, and it's impacting so many of the costs. In fact, I've spoken to several developers who told me that their development costs from last year to this year have gone up 37%. Now, I asked if this had actually inspired some developers to put some development to the side. And I got back that yes, there is some that are postponing the development. Many are still going through, and you're going to see there is a slight tick in the downward in the new development. And it could be because of the rising costs. This is a very unusual year. And I think it's very important that we put everything in front of us as we create a vision to go into this year. Now, I believe that this is an up year. And the percentage of growth that we do is so important. Even today, I was talking with a very long industry friend who said they're not going all the way to market. They're still keeping some of their renewals below market. But we don't know how many years we've got in expansion before this thing starts to come down. And if we don't get all the way to the top of the market, we won't. And so I really feel a sense of urgency this year that expansion is absolutely documentable. Our KPIs and the percentage of revenue that we grow is going to matter to where we end up. We all know that hyper supply is coming. We overbuild every time. That will trigger a recession and rent prices will go down. And so right now, it's very clear that this is an up year. And I want to help my clients' teams get to the top of the market. Every lead, every renewal, every resident experience matters. My goal this year is to provide trusted direction and sustained momentum, baby. You feeling that? That's the truth, isn't it? So I have a little bit of data about the uptick in the rent. You probably have your own for your local market, but the numbers are pretty high. 18 reported here, and you can see the growth chart. All of this is in your ebook. Here's Zumper talking about the median one bedroom going up 11.6 to 13.6, and that it is all going up. National Association of Realtors is talking about the year-to-year change in rent growth in multifamily units. Again, we see a huge surge in the rent. The absorption is still relatively good, but we do see a little bit of a downtick in the absorption to construction. And here's where you see the new units under construction dropping just slightly, but I do believe we'll have great new development this year, maybe next year. Some people are saying 2025 is when development might really start to slow down. In the meantime, absorption has been doing really good. So clearly, we have in front of us in 2022 an up year. So one of the things that's happening is the renewals. And I've got a lot of companies that are reporting 10, 15, 20, even 44% increase in the rent on the renewals. And so we have to look at how can we manage this renewal situation. We know that turnover is one of our most expensive costs. Here's some J. Turner research that talks about how long does a resident live in an apartment before they start looking for a new one. Well, 11% of them do it the first month. So one of the things I'm doing is I am really hanging my hat on day one and doing a ton of resident experience designed around day one. And I had a great conversation with Kelly over at Bizzuto, and they're hanging their hat on day one too. Really, really beefing up that consumer experience to get people settled in, to build those roots, to establish them in the community, and then maintain their residency. So it's important you realize that the residents are watching the market. We have very informed residents today. So two strategies diverged in the market, like the Robert Frost poem. And I see people who are matching incentives, downselling their apartment by doing that, and they're letting the market lead them. My advice to you this year is to add value to your marketing plan, to upsell in this up year, and then to lead the market. Two strategies diverge in the market, and I took the one with more NOI, baby. So I'm really blessed to have had a great experience. My father was in the Air Force, and I got to go over to Europe. And while I was there, I got to learn 5 different foreign languages. I had an opportunity as a professional speaker to share my German with an audience in Germany. And ich habe den ganzen Programm auf Deutsch gemacht. I spoke the entire program in German. Ich musste lernen 800 neues Deutschen werden. I had to learn 800 new German words. Mehrfamilienwohnung, multifamily housing. And I brought the quote from Robert Frost that I want to present to you in German. Zwei Straßen werden in einen Wald. Und ich nehme den Pfad, der wenige Leute gewählt haben. Und das hat den großes Unterschied in mein Leben gemacht. Now, why am I speaking German to you? Because I believe that this year, the information that we need to share with our field teams about a confident conversation for renewal is going to take some cards. I learn language by using cards and by learning how to speak. And I believe there's so much that our teams need to learn that they're going to need to put it in cards. And I'll show you what I've put together. I want to raise rents without raising eyebrows. I want to prepare my teams to confidently be able to discuss the 2022 rent increase and know exactly precisely what to say. I've always loved the fact that we use the term rent potential. It means it's possible, but it's not really actual. Capable of being or becoming, because my goal has always been, if I get attached to an asset, to get more than the rent potential. I want to collect and I want to do better than what the budget said. Because if it ain't in the bank, it ain't in the budget. So I want to put it in the bank. But I believe today it is so important that we push our teams to go beyond the rent potential, to collect beyond that, to get to the top of the market, to not leave it on the table this year. Now, we have in our society a completely unusual circumstance at what the resident sees when it comes to rent and the rent increases. It has just been mind-boggling, I know, to many of you, how it is even possible that we had an eviction moratorium where people felt that they deserved free rent. And it has just caused this bias socially in our country. And nobody expected the restaurants to serve free food, and nobody expected people to give cars away, but they did expect help with the rent in a commercial, not an affordable housing situation. So there are a lot of cons out there. And I think it's important that you acclimate your people to what's going on socioeconomically around rent in 2022 and prepare your teams with all kinds of pro statements and focused on what people gain by staying and keeping their apartment and not moving. So the little cards that I've created for my clients to use to learn, one is a set of 10 understandings. It's 10 things they need to understand about the market. They need to understand inflation. They need to understand that our costs have gone up. The other one is 24 points of consideration. And I recommend that you consider developing these same kind of tools that give your teams a way to learn how to introduce this information in a conversation. I also did a ton of research to find out what are the the actual statements of objections that residents are giving. And today I'm going to give you the 6 types that residents have been presenting. I believe that we of new understandings into our teams and points of consideration and being prepared to deal with those objections. So here's one of the understandings I'll share with you today. Google has prepared the resident to negotiate. It's about the social bias. Do yourself a favor. Just pull up a URL, pull up an address and type in to Google or any one of them, negotiating rent increase, and take a look at what comes up. Do you think there's any advice for property management people on how to negotiate a rent increase with the resident? I'm going to tell you honestly, I went 10 pages deep and could not find anything, but I found blog after blog and post after post that prepared the renter to come in and negotiate with us. And today we have a very savvy renter. They know what's going on. You've got this social bias that's going on. I believe your teams need to have a confident conversation with carefully designed points of consideration in order to generate resident loyalty. There is this idea of conscientious capitalism, where we need to be spiritual about our revenue generation. And I think there's a complete misunderstanding of what costs we have had to endure during this entire past couple of years. So letting your residents know about inflation, the increased cost in insurance. I had one property that told me that from last year to this year, their insurance on one property went up $40,000. You say that to a resident and they're like, wow, but I think it needs to be real numbers because we want to make sure that they trust us. But I love the idea of property insurance, property taxes, cost of goods. I mean, they know it. They see it on the news. They want a new dishwasher and we have to do a scavenger hunt to find one. So the public is definitely in this very anxious place, and they're being extremely emotional about these rent increases. And our teams need to have clear understanding why, so that they can confidently maintain things. So one of the things that you need to know is this is emotional. I'm going to show you the 6 different types of objections the residents are giving us. Financial. I don't have the money. They're just flat out saying, you giving me a 20% rent increase in my rent. I didn't get a 20% raise. How am I supposed to do this? They are literally putting it on us. The exchange. They think if we raise the rent, we ought to give them a ceiling fan, or we ought to pay for something if we're going to take more money. They complain and say, why should I pay you more money? You didn't even do this, or you didn't take care of that. They're giving the staff guilt, like #bad human. How could you do this to me right now? They think it's unfair. And they're even pointing to crime in the area. I call this diffusing the bomb, because if our teams are not prepared to truly manage the emotions of the residents when they come in, we could wind up with some very, very scathing reviews on our reputation. And it's the circumstance. It's 2022. It's 40-year high inflation. All of these things are coming together to a perfect storm, and your site teams deserve great information. I have on one side of this part of the conversation in which I was collecting the statements, and then I have a few tips on diffusing the bomb. 2020 is a strange time. We're all in this together. Practice true compassion, which I teach them from the Brené Brown book. A renewal conversation is not about us being responsible for their emotions. Make sure your teams know how to be responsible for just their own, not theirs. Make sure they know how to recognize humanity. They need to know that they don't need to fix this or add a silver lining or make it better. It's not their responsibility to do that. They don't want to walk in their shoes. They just want to put themselves in their place. And what we find is very successful is to listen first and use active listening skills. Let them kind of vent it out, write really good notes. And when it's your time after they vented, because I really believe this is about being present in their pain while they unpack their thoughts and their emotions, then thanking them for taking time to tell you how they feel. And then I think they're pretty clear. The resident knows that we can't change the number of that rent increase. They can't come in and negotiate that with us, that it's done in a different location. But I think they would appreciate a compassionate ear and somebody listening to their point of view. And I believe when they're completely done, then it's time for us to begin to show our points of consideration. So one of the things I want you to remember is that they're looking to our site teams. According to Edelman, they're trusting our site teams. And so I think it's very important that you provide your teams with actual, true reports from NBC or the Washington Post or Time Magazine reporting, not to just say something, because residents today, they'll be like, I'm going to Google it. Where'd you get that? Right. And so we want them to trust us. I also am instructing my companies to give the site teams the actual property taxes that were paid last year, because it will boggle the resident's brain. It's like, I talked to this home manager and it was over $500,000. And so you say to the resident, do you realize that we paid over $500,000 in property taxes last year? You're welcome. When they start to see the numbers, these big numbers of what we've paid, all of a sudden, I believe they're going to have understanding and they're going to be able to accept the rent increase. I think it's very important our teams know how to talk about the fact that we have to make a decision right now that goes for a year into the future. And it has been very unpredictable, this world we're living in right now. And we need to be able to maintain this house. And then this is where I introduced the Social Security Administration's annual COLA, which is the cost of living adjustment. And that is based on the rate of inflation. All of those numbers are available for your teams to get. And then I refer to the changes in what we're doing as a COBA, a cost of business adjustment. That's not an official term. It's just one that lines up with the language from the Social Security Administration. Make sure your teams know how to let your resident know this is not all profit. This is a way for us to adjust to inflation with a cost of business adjustment to be able to provide you with the type of home that you're accustomed to. And then I know some of you have been in the business a long time, you know, there's all kinds of reasons to stay. And frankly, one of them is the fact that the cost of moving itself is so expensive. And so if you do this, know that it's different in each market. Again, we want to be very, very honest, very truthful, give them accurate information, because it can range from $15,000 to $4,000. But if we take the 15 and we divide it by 12, that's $125. If you're not raising their rent $125, they save money by staying, and they don't have a backache. They don't have to borrow a truck. There's so many reasons to stay. We just need to equip our team to have them. I have a summary in the end of my 22 trend report that goes through all of the things that I've made observations about this year that I think are very important for you to follow. Thank you so much for taking time today to spend with me, to take a look at the market, to take a look at our future, and to set a 2020 vision that is going to take us all to the top of the market. I'll see you there.